Another question from MFA student Aaliyah, third year. Let's see, she asked, how do you protect yourself from the trauma that comes from writing about Black trauma?
I don't think you can protect yourself from the things that you write about. I think if you, Ocean, oh, my boo is like sleep on the floor, pizza sleep. Oh, that's cute. I'll be, okay, I would not run out of battery. We'll be fine. Okay. How do you protect? I think you don't protect yourself. I think you have to like allow yourself to experience the full force of what it is you're researching and engaging with. Especially if you're writing about that stuff, because you want to actually make your reader feel something too, right? Like you have to go through it, they have to go through it, the people that you're writing about have to go through it. And that is not to say that you have to like recreate the pain, but I think it is to say that like in the actual writing of it, you have to go there and you have to allow yourself to like feel those hard emotions, like sometimes writing is weeping while in between the typing, in between the edits. And I think what then the protecting yourself maybe is about that aftercare, is about knowing that like maybe it's fun to have like a side project that is like purely delightful and playful that you can go play into. I did that for a long time with Don't Call Us Dead. Summer Somewhere, which starts my second book, is a really hard poem for me, that like imagines an alternate heaven for Black folks that have been killed by the police. And that poem, I couldn't edit that poem without weeping and all that kind of stuff. And so I knew that like, okay, I wrote into like little bits, but even when I was editing it, I knew that either after I was going to have to like watch like at least 2 episodes of Parks and Rec, or that I had another project that was just a pet project. It will never see the world, but it was just like my silly writing that made, and like maybe it will, but it was just a project that felt fun to work on. It was completely frivolous. It was just like sort of like silly, like very like over the top, like gay sex poems. And so like, and that felt like a reprieve to be like, okay, like after I work on this, I can go like just like work on this other thing, or just to know that I had something else that just wasn't always demanding the full scale of my emotional spectrum. Like some of that work, right? Especially the darker realms. So be kind to yourself, write slow, write other things, know that you're allowed to take a break from your own work. You're allowed to say that not for today. But I do think you have to sort of like allow yourself to experience the full brunt of any hard topic that you're writing about. But figure out what aftercare looks for you. If you're going to write about something really hard for 2 hours a day, in a day, what is going to sleep well look for you on the other side? Is that a movie? Is that a walk? Is that a talk with a good friend? Is that whatever it may be? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me think about your discipline. Like, what is it? How is your discipline? Like, is that your kind of schedule? You're going to sit down and write these hard poems for 2 hours, or how does that your schedule kind of work like that?
It comes and goes, I guess. I think I'm always scared to say like anything that's too prescribed, just because I don't know, because it changes at the seasons of your life. There were times in my life when I was working, full 9 to 5s. And so a lot of my work like really happened on like the train to and from work. I would just like type while I was standing up, and that was like, me and the notes section got along well. A lot of the poems from Don't Call Us Dead started in the notes app, just like going back and forth from work. And other times, I think it's about to me, discipline is carving out any amount of time for yourself that feels like a commitment. And we all have different lives, and so if an hour a day feels like a commitment for you, do it. But if an hour a week feels like carving out time, and that feels like even a little bit stressful, then that's, you do it. But it's just about what it looks like for you, because the lives of, I'm a 30-year-old polyamorous homosexual. I don't have any kids. Like I don't like I can write. So whatever it looks like for you. I think for me, when I was at like sort of maybe my most disciplined in a way, or maybe my most like on top of it or something like that, I said I would spend at least an hour a day touching writing. And that could be writing new work, editing old work, submitting work, or doing very intentional reading, not just reading the thing I told myself I haven't read yet, but something that I felt like was feeding a project of mine. So an hour of like intentionally touching writing, either mine or others. I think that felt like good discipline. You know, and now it's not like that. When I'm working on something, maybe, but you know, I read every day, and if I write a day, that's a good day. But I don't beat myself up to write every day anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it's kind of like releasing the shame around that. I think as writers, we're told is like, you have to write every single day for all day, 24/7 kind of thing.
You gotta live. You gotta do other stuff. And for real though, like life takes up creative energy, you know? Like I think like shit, the rent sometimes takes creative energy to like come up with, right? And I think you have to be lenient on yourself, right? I think like a lot of people are probably beating themselves up because they said they were gonna write a novel and now we're all quarantined and they haven't written a novel yet. And it's just like, go live your fucking life, you know, go have your feelings, and when you get to it, you will get to it.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, we can't beat ourselves up too bad. And living is writing, you know. When I heard Carl Phillips say that for the first time, that really freed me up. When Carl Phillips is like, you know what, a fucking walk is the writing process, and if I don't write for 3 months, that like all that living I did in those 3 months between picking up the pen was research. I was like, oh, I'm free. So
Okay, Carl Phillips. Read him to be free. Got it.
Yeah.